We open episode 20 with John's cheek being dabbed with alcohol. He yelps in pain, and Saffron says, "Oh please, you whine more than my 2-year-old. The two, sitting in the Kata Arc living room, look over to Adrian, playing with his manta and stuffing it in his mouth, around the battery compartment. Immediately Tara slides into frame and pulls it out, saying, No, don't chew on that." Adrian begins to cry in response, and John raises a brow at Saffron. Saffron resumes rubbing the swab harder on his face. He winces, but looks across the couch to where Weiss, Blake, and Yang are sitting in dejected silence. Looking to Blake, he says, "So, Adam showed up." Yang's head falls against the couch as Blake sits up, more attentive. "It was like the Grimm were drawn to him, and the minute he looked at us, he just kept on coming. We barely slowed him down." Yang breathes out. "You're lucky we lured him away from the wall, cause honestly, if you guys had gotten there any earlier." Nora pumps her arms in the air. We would have taken him." Blake, matter-of-factly, retorts, "He would have cut you down. We had every advantage in that fight and he still beat us." Blake curls in on herself. "He's always been strong. But this was something else. He's worse, like a man possessed by something. Hatred?" Weiss quietly mutters, "I wouldn't blame him for it. Did you see his face? My family did that to him." Blake reaches over and rests a hand on Weiss's shoulder. "It's not your fault, Weiss. It was some night guard when he was a kid. You're not responsible for what your family allowed to happen." Weiss shakes her head. "I'm a Schnee. Heiress or not, I'm going to inherit my family's legacy." Yang speaks up from where she's slumped. "Weiss, I appreciate the self-reflection, but that asshole almost killed Ruby and lost us our ticket to Atlas. It's okay to be angry at him." John, Nora, and Ren snap to look at the three, John exclaiming, "What? You lost the ticket to Atlas?" Tara blinks in shock. "Cordovan reneged on the deal? She's never done that. Our contracts with her have always gone through just fine, to the letter." Yang sighs. "Well, apparently that doesn't hold true for..." She holds up finger quotes. "Cowards who abandon their post, no matter how much damage the homicidal maniac would have done." Nora sits up stock straight. "She can't do that!" Weiss shakes her head. "She can, and she has. And the worst part is she's taken the lamp." Ren replies, "Why would she do that? Does she know what it does?" Yang answers back, "No, she just hates us." John asks, "Well, what are we going to do now? We spent the better part of a month working towards that." Yang flippantly suggests, "Find the nearest bar? That's about all I can think of." There's a long quiet as they all stew on the situation. Suddenly, the front door slams open and Roman steps through, yelling, "Daddy's home, and he's got his cigarettes. Cigars, they're actually cigars." He steps through the doorway, kitted out in a completely new outfit, flanked by the skipping Neo, who stays faithfully by his side in her own brand new outfit. Roman's proud face droops seeing the mood of the room, and he comments dryly, "I didn't know you'd all be this sad over us being gone. What's with the faces?" While most of the room are unenthused at his entrance, Yang perks up and raises her head, saying, "Neo?" Instinctually, she raises her hands and signs while speaking. "I'm glad to see you're okay." Neo smiles and signs back. "And you look terrible." Yang gives a dry laugh and drops her head back to the couch, now smiling a little more. Nora, realizing no one is talking, looks to Roman and says, Welcome back? I think?" Roman, wearing a more serious face, finds an empty seat and sits down. "Not exactly how I thought this was going to go. What's going on?" There's a collective groan as Yang says, "Plan fell through with Cordovan. We're not getting to Atlas." Roman blinks and says, "Oh." He thinks for a moment before waving his arm nebulously in the air. "Have you tried kidnapping her?" Before anyone can answer, he mutters to himself, No, that wouldn't work. Too well defended." He looks to Adrian and Tara's arms and asks, "Does she have any kids?" Tara, horrified, turns Adrian away while she, Saffron, and John give him undisguised looks of disgust. John hisses, "We're not criminals!" Roman shakes his head at him. "Well, that's your problem now, isn't it?" John tries to get a word in, but Roman buckles down, his words losing levity. "No, seriously think about it. What are you willing to do to get to Atlas?" A special thanks goes out to all of my wonderful patrons for supporting the channel. If you like this content and want more of it, please consider supporting it. Also consider picking up my new action-adventure novel, The Artificer, which is now available for purchase on Amazon in digital and in print. With that all said, back to your regularly scheduled fixing. We cut over to an interrogation room where Adam has been chained to the floor beneath the table. His eyes are glassy, and the room around him is covered in a thick, desaturated mental haze. The door on the other side of the room opens, and he can barely make out the blurry shape walking towards him. It's Cordovan, who stands right in front of the table and throws down a folder of files. My, you're busy. Adam barely looks down at the files, and when he looks up, there's a new figure there, a young, tired-looking defense attorney who says, "Alright kid, let's make this quick. I'm Mrs. Camilla, and I'll be your defense attorney. We don't have much time, I've got 15 more cases before lunch." A young Adam looks at her with thinly veiled disdain, and we transition back to the present as Cordovan begins to speak. "I'll be frank with you." And from here, we get Adam experiencing two scenes interspersed with one another, running in parallel. The first is Cordovan talking with Adam in the present, while the other is Mrs. Camilla talking with young Adam in the past. In the past, Camilla runs through a list of crimes. Attempted theft, assault with a deadly weapon, immigration fraud, attempting to flee the country without a Faunus immigration pass, 2 counts of fleeing the scene of a crime, and 1 attempted, as well as assaulting an officer of the law. She comments with some level of sympathy that he's in a bad position, and explains that she's got a deal for him, though it takes a bit of bickering for him to listen. There's a program shipping Faunus to Menagerie from Atlas to alleviate some of the social unease. The courts don't want to deal with him and the expense that comes with him. As long as he's okay being soaked through his skin, it's exactly what he wants. He'd be an idiot to pass it up. In the present, Cordovan is presenting Adam with a choice. Be remitted to Argus custody and tried in Mistral, where it's heavily implied he'll be given a death sentence, or be brought back to Atlas as a trophy for Cordovan and the Atlas military to live out his sentence in high security, alive and well enough. Back in the past, Adam accepts Camilla's condition, and on her way out, she throws him some gauze to cover his eye, which has begun to bleed. Meanwhile, in the present, he's borderline catatonic, unresponsive to any of what Cordovan is saying. Cordovan is unimpressed and packs up her files, commenting snidely, "Well, if that is what you wish, I'll give you the day, since you know well not to talk back to your betters." Adam doesn't react to those words, his eyes still glaring into the floor. As the door closes behind him, we see a young Adam sitting where the older one should be, head in his hands as 2 guards enter to take him back to his cell. We follow Cordovan as she casually walks through the halls of the boot, when her scroll begins to ring an alarm. She groans and pulls it out, answering it. "What is it?" And before she can even finish speaking, Dee's voice carries over, saying, "Ma'am, we have a major situation." As he finishes saying this, the lights flicker overhead. Back at the Anima Arc house, the lights flicker, though only dimly, and no one notices, too engrossed in trying to figure out what to do. The group are all circled around the table, shooting back and forth different ideas of what they could do, like buying a boat, petitioning the local council, going back to Mistral, and none of them are coming up to a good solution. They're all lost in thought when the front door swings open, not so extremely like when Roman opened it, but still sharp and snappy. RWBY comes walking confidently through the front door, followed closely by Crow. As she enters, RWBY takes stock of the assembled group, and they all look at her confused by her sudden change in demeanor. She comments briefly, "Roman, Neo, good, you're back. That'll make things easier. Everyone grab your gear, we're moving out." Team Junior start moving quickly, while the rest are slightly slower to respond, though they slowly begin to stand. RWBY begins to head up the stairs with Crow close behind when Yang asks, "RWBY, what's going on?" RWBY pauses on the stairs as Crow goes past her. She briefly tells him to grab her things before addressing the group below. "We're going to Atlas. Now." The assembled crew look at her shocked and baffled, but her words instill a sense of energy in their movements. Blake blinks. What's the plan?" RWBY, who had turned to go back up the stairs, turns back, face stoic, but radiating confidence. "We're stealing a plane." There's a beat of silence before Roman throws his fist up in the air. "Aw, hell yeah! Crime! I knew you had it in you, Red!" We cut to outside the house, where RWBY is leading everyone out, carrying full packs of equipment. We get that some time has implied to have been passed, as she is now explaining the tail end of her plan. So, the distraction team will converge with the relic team at the end of the runway, then Crow jumps out of the control tower and flies to meet us after we've dusted off. Then it's a straight shot to Atlas and we're home free. Bip bop bam, easy plan. John nudges her shoulder and says, Hey, RWBY?" The camera, having been one consistent shot, pans back and towards the ocean, revealing a wide shot of the boot and the hard light seawall. Air raid sirens begin to sound, as what appears to be the remaining Legion forces are lifting off from the base and flying away from the city, just as the hard light walls around the city begin to deactivate in sequence. Our protagonists stare in dejected shock, and RWBY drops her arms. There's only a beat of silence before it cuts to black, and RWBY says, "Okay, new plan."